I was not born a blade. I became one, slowly, like iron learning the patience of fire. At dawn, the mist sits low along the river, and the pine needles carry last night's rain. I breathe in silence. I count the heartbeats between footfalls. The village still sleeps, yet the mountains watch, older than any oath I have sworn. They say Bushido is a code. I have learned it is a mirror. When I lean close, it does not show my face. It shows what I must become. Rectitude, courage, benevolence, courtesy, sincerity, honor, loyalty, words taught to boys, meanings earned by men. When the shogun's banners changed, so did the world. Armor slipped into storerooms. Guns spoke a new grammar of power. Many laid down their swords and learned to bow in different halls. I did not despise them. I only listened to the wind along the ridge, to the water beneath the bridge, to the breath inside my chest. The old world was ending. The old world was also inside me. I keep a small lamp by the window. In its glow, I write few words and many pauses. A warrior must know when to advance, when to retreat, and when to let silence carry his meaning farther than speech. I write to a friend I can no longer visit, to a lord who no longer rules, to a boy who may never be born. If my letter survives me, let it tell this, that I tried to be precise with my kindness and careful with my anger. There is a garden behind my house, nothing grand, a crooked maple, a stone basin, a path of uneven steps. I sweep each morning not to move the dust, but to notice it, its way of returning, loyal as a dog. Every task is a lesson. Even fallen leaves are dignified if you know how to bow to them. I sharpen my sword like I speak to the dead, softly, without hurry. The whetstone's voice is low, like rain heard from the far end of a temple. Steel remembers. It remembers the hands that forged it, the vows it guarded, the blood it did not wish to taste. A sword kept too bright becomes vain. A sword kept too dull becomes dangerous. Between those mistakes lies discipline. At the edge of the province stands a red gate, a torii where the mountain path narrows. I learned to pass beneath it as if stepping from one world into another, the world of intentions into the world of consequences. A hawk circles there at noon. In winter, a single bell from the shrine carries farther than reason. Once, before dusk, a messenger came, dust on his sleeves, worry in his voice. The new magistrate demanded pledges. Names were read like debts. I listened, then bowed. I kept my promise, which is to say, I kept my silence. Not all words deserve to be answered. Not all storms deserve to be met with steel. At night, I practiced the small forms, draw cut, sheath, not for war, but for honesty. The body lies easily. It learns to fake grace. The blade does not lie. It tells you where you hesitate. It tells you where you rush. It teaches you that a flawless stroke is simply a truthful one. Sometimes the moon finds me awake. I step outside and feel the cold travel through the plank floor into my bones. The village lanterns blink like tired eyes. Somewhere a child turns in sleep. Somewhere a fox decides the road is safer than the brush. The world is not divided between the living and the dead, but between the mindful and the lost. I have fought men who shouted and men who said nothing at all. Fear wears many costumes. Mine wears discipline. It tightens my breath when I must loosen it. It urges my feet when I must root them. To be brave is not to feel no fear. It is to teach fear where to sit. In the letter I leave on the desk, I do not mention glory. I mention rice. I mention the price of salt in winter and the old woman who sells straw sandals by the bridge. I mention the maple's slow courage when the first frost arrives. If a child reads my words, let him learn this. that gentleness is not the opposite of strength. It is the shape strength takes when it remembers its purpose. The last snow of the season fell this morning. It did not argue with the earth. It did not demand to be seen. It arrived, it served its beauty, it vanished. I would like my life to end like that, present, useful, and unafraid of being forgotten. If tomorrow asks me to bow, I will bow. If tomorrow asks me to kneel, I will kneel. But if tomorrow asks me to betray the quiet things that made me whole, I will refuse. There are thresholds one must not step across, even when the room beyond is warm. Do you hear the river? Stand very still. Between two breaths, it sounds like 1,000 pages turning. Somewhere a new world is being read. I do not know if I belong to it, but I know how to carry my name across the bridge with my back straight, my gaze clear, and my hands empty of regret. And if I must walk alone, I will walk as my teachers asked, not as a storm and not as a shadow, but as a man who knows how to lay his sword down without dropping it. They came at dawn. I had been awake for hours, listening to the snow thaw from the roof, each drop like a measured heartbeat. The emperor's seal had spoken. Rebellion was treason. Honor was now a word for the archives. Yet the river did not argue. It simply continued toward the sea, as all things must. I put on my armor slowly, as if dressing an old memory. The metal was cold, the silence colder. I tied the knot of my sash not to prepare for war, but to remember who I was before the world forgot my name. On the road, I passed farmers leading oxen through frost. They bowed, not to a samurai, but to a man walking toward his ending. In that moment, I understood what it meant to serve. Not a lord, not a flag, but the fragile rhythm of life itself. The hill where they waited was quiet. 10 men, rifles ready, eyes uncertain. One carried a banner with words he could not read. Their fear smelled like damp earth. I bowed once. I did not draw my sword. The wind between us carried enough sharpness. A gunshot cracked the stillness. The sound echoed down the valley, startled the hawk from its perch. I did not feel pain, only the faint surprise of being lighter than before. The world tilted, and I fell into the snow I had admired that morning. The snow accepted me without question. When I opened my eyes again, there was no sound, only light, pale and endless. I thought it was death. It was memory. I walked through fields I had never sown, along rivers I had never crossed, yet every stone knew my step. The ancestors did not speak. They only looked. In their eyes, I saw the same question I had carried all my life. What is the weight of silence? A voice, perhaps my own, answered, silence weighs exactly as much as truth. Too little, and it floats away. Too much, and it drowns you. In the aftermist of dreams, I found my sword again, not shining, not bleeding, simply waiting. I took it in my hands and saw my reflection, not as a warrior, but as a man who had finally learned to stop defending his wounds. If the gods of this new age remember us, let them remember not the battles we fought, but the moments we chose not to. Let them remember the sound of a broom on stone, the patience of a falling leaf, the kindness of restraint. Every era believes it buries its dead, but the truth is gentler. The dead plant us. In their silence, we grow. The sun has risen again. Somewhere, a child ties his first belt. He does not yet know the rules or the weight they carry, but when he looks into the morning mist and feels his breath steady, he will understand. Bushido was never about death. It was about clarity. And if my story fades, as it should, may it fade like the snow that melts into the river, not lost, but carried.